Hello, teachers, parents, and educational leaders, and welcome to this episode of Breaking Down the B.E.S.T. Now, during this episode, you will get a peek into the members-only area where I have tons of resources to help you make math fun, make it click, and make it stick. There should be a link somewhere around this video where you can learn more. All right, now that we got that out of the way, let's get to it, and let's break down the standard. Welcome to Breaking Down the B.E.S.T, a video series dedicated to breaking down Florida's best standards for math. So grab something to write with and maybe even a snack. This looks good. And don't forget to put a smile on your face. There you go. I see you. And let's dive into today's best standard. Hey everyone. My name is Sarah McCarthy and I'm so excited that you are joining me as we break down the following standard. Today's standard is MA.3.GR.1.2 and this standard says to identify and draw quadrilaterals based on their defining attributes. Quadrilaterals include parallelograms, rhombi, rectangles, squares, and trapezoids. All right, so quadrilaterals are polygons that have four sides. A polygon has got to be closed, got to be straight, three or more sides, a flat plane shape. Got to be closed, got to be straight, three or more sides of flat plane shape. So quadrilaterals are specific polygons with four sides, based on their defining attributes, which is a fancy way to say characteristics. Notice here that with rhombi, this is the plural form of rhombus. So when you're referring to more than one rhombus, you would say rhombi. Sometimes students will see that and be like, wait, rhombi. Most times students will see the word rhombus, but make sure that you go over that word rhombi being the plural form so it doesn't throw off your students. And trapezoids, I put a star right here because there's a change in definition from the Common Core standards, which I believe that we will get to, which we will talk about in just a minute. Before we continue, I just want you to know that I did not create this document that I'm marking up all over. This is something that the Florida Department of Education releases to the public so that way we can take the standards and break them down to understand them better, to understand the intention of the standard even more. So in these breaking down the B.E.S.T episodes, we'll spend about half of the video breaking down the standard, and then in the second half of the video, we walk through the resources that you have access to with your Taking on the B.E.S.T membership, specifically aligned to this standard, okay? All right, so some benchmark clarifications, just knowing that quadrilaterals will be filled, outlined, or both. Okay, so like this over here would be like an outline shape because it's not really filled in, or a filled in one might be all gray or all black, right? And then drawing representations must be reasonably accurate. There. What are some of the connecting benchmarks that provide the horizontal alignment in third grade? Basically, what connects to this standard, which is measuring length, liquid volume, and temperature. And also 1.2, which is real world problems with measure. And I think that's great. It does involve length and measuring and all of that, but I also think all of the geometry standards connect with this one too. So there are several, so they all kind of connect with this one. A line is a straight path that goes on and on forever in both directions. Parallelograms must have exactly two pairs of parallel sides like this. A rectangle is a type of parallelogram that has four right angles. It must have four right angles. And a square has four equal sides and four equal angles. I'm not sure why they didn't mention a rhombus here or a trapezoid. I don't know why it's not right there, but we will be going through plenty of vocabulary in this unit. In second grade, we've got some vertical alignment to share. In second grade, they had MA.3.G.R.1.2, which would involve two-dimensional figures as well, focusing on the attributes of triangles, rectangles, squares, pentagons, and hexagons. So we're definitely bumping that up and really getting a lot more skilled with this one. And then in fourth grade, we will practice with angles in two-dimensional figures. Purpose and instructional strategies. Let me just break down what kind of jumped out at me. It says that the purpose of this benchmark is to provide opportunities for students to apply their formalized definitions of geometric attributes when identifying and drawing quadrilaterals. So basically, everything that they learned from the previous standard, 3.GR.1.1, we're now putting that more into practice with this one to help us categorize quadrilaterals, to identify and draw quadrilaterals based on the attributes that they now know from the previous standard. This is that this benchmark gives opportunities for students to build vocabulary around examples of quadrilaterals. So we did that a little bit with GR.1.1, but we're really nailing it with this one. And here I want to talk about trapezoids because there is a difference from Common Core. At least it's more specified, okay? The B.E.S.T standards stated in another document that a trapezoid will have the inclusive definition of. This is different than how I have taught it before, but this is what we're going with, so it's important to know what they're considering a trapezoid to be. It's a quadrilateral, so a polygon with 4 sides, with at least, this should say 1, with at least 1 pair of parallel sides. In the past, I have had examples in videos where I have taught that a trapezoid has 1 pair of parallel sides. This is saying that it has to have at least 1 pair. So if it has more than 1 pair, it's still considered a trapezoid. In order to be a trapezoid, to be included in the trapezoid club, it needs at least 1 pair. So a parallelogram, rectangle, rhombi, and all the squares are all considered trapezoids because they all have at least 1 pair of parallel sides. You might need to go back and listen to that again to make sure you get it. So it's a hierarchy that we will break down in the videos. Some errors too that students make. Some students can confuse intersecting lines as perpendicular. I found that students will confuse perpendicular lines as sometimes as just being intersecting and not seeing them as perpendicular. So be careful with that. And that we can use those square corners on sheets of paper to really determine if it has those right angles or not, to determine if lines are perpendicular or not. Right? And then we've got where figures that might not fall into any other category, a figure like a kite, for instance, is still considered a quadrilateral, even though it might not have 1 pair of parallel sides or 2 or right angles or something like that. It won't be classified further. Okay, here are some tasks in action. I said that this was a tough question. It says, draw an example of a quadrilateral that does not have any defining attributes of a square, except that it has 4 straight sides and 4 vertices. Then explain how you knew. So this was what I drew. I drew a figure with 1, 2, 3, 4 sides, has 4 straight sides and 4 vertices, but it does not have 4 right angles, 4 equal sides, or 2 pairs of parallel sides. So it is definitely not having the same attributes as a square. Tough question though. Then here for these items, I said notice the lack of visuals for these. We don't have any. We have to be prepared that it's going to be a lot of vocabulary, and we have to prepare our students on how to create visuals or really understand what these words look like. What does a square look like? What does a rhombus look like? So here it says, which of the following quadrilaterals always have 2 sets of parallel sides? Select all that apply. So a square, a rectangle, a rhombus, and a parallelogram must always have them, but a trapezoid only sometimes does. It only has to have at least 1 pair, not always 2. But notice there's no visuals. So for these types of problems, I would make sure that my students had practice with this and gradually release them. Start with a lot of heavy visual use and then gradually release, and maybe even have students draw a square and show the 2 sets of parallel sides. Draw all of these, the square, the rectangle, the rhombus, the parallelogram, and model how it has 2 sets of parallel sides. Which of the following quadrilaterals always have perpendicular sides? Same thing. Showing how a square and a rectangle must always have them, but how a rhombus and a parallelogram and a trapezoid could not. They only sometimes do. It would be important to include those visuals. All right, I think that's it for going over this standard. So let's go ahead and jump to the website and see what you have access to with your membership. So here we are at the website. We're going to click right here at members, enter here. And we've got taking on the best that we will click. We're going to go to 3rd grade, down to the GR strand, and click on MA.3.GR.1.2, which involves quadrilaterals. And right away, you're brought to the bronze resources. So the bronze level contains a video lesson and a printable student page where students can record their notes from the video. So in the first one, we've got 1, 2, 3 videos for this particular standard. Okay, so we're saying, all right, let's identify what is a quadrilateral. So here's the video. It says, what is the definition of a quadrilateral? Draw 5 different quadrilaterals. Draw 2 non-examples of a quadrilateral and explain why each is not a quadrilateral. So you can see this has that video lesson icon. That means that in the video lesson, we're going through all of this. So you can see here, when I pause the video, it's the same as question number 2, and we're drawing out what does a rectangle look like, a square, a trapezoid, and why, because it has at least 1 pair of parallel sides. And parallelograms have 2 pairs of parallel sides. And all of that, okay? And then this one focuses on quadrilaterals with 1 or 2 pairs of parallel sides. So what's the difference between a trapezoid and a parallelogram? And then here, quadrilaterals with equal sides and angles. For this one, we're really breaking down the difference between a trapezoid and a parallelogram. And in this one, we're showcasing, okay, so once we get to where we're going, okay, so now we've got parallelograms, but what if they have equal angles? All right angles, like a rectangle, right? Then it would be a rectangle. What about equal sides? That would be a rhombus. What if it has equal angles and equal sides? And that would be a square. So it's really taking it and breaking them down to have them make sense. Now, the purpose of these video lessons is to make math fun and to make it click, to provide students with notes that they can refer back to. In order for them to make it stick, they need to practice, and that's why I've included more resources in the silver plan. So I'm going to click here. It says click here for your printables. So you can see that we have the video lesson for the first one, identifying quadrilaterals. This just kind of gives you everything right there that just makes it easier to print for you. If you have the silver membership, then you can print all your bronze video lesson guides and all of the other stuff too that comes with it. So once you go through the video lesson, what is the definition of a quadrilateral? Oh, we've already talked about this. So after we've watched that video, now here's some extra practice. Which of the following figures are quadrilaterals? Select all that apply. If a figure is not a quadrilateral, explain your reasoning. So we're going to select the ones that are quadrilaterals, and then for the ones that are not, we're going to take time to explain why. Okay, so here you can see that we've got an open shape. And the next video lesson with 1 or 2 pairs of parallel sides. So what is the quadrilateral with at least 1 pair of parallel sides called? And we will draw 3 examples of trapezoids. What about a quadrilateral with 2 pairs of parallel sides? We'll draw 3 examples of parallelograms in this video lesson, probably including a rectangle because it does have 2 pairs of parallel sides. What do trapezoids and parallelograms have in common, and how are they different? Then here's some extra practice. So students can now use their notes, and look, we've got that word rhombi, rectangles, rhombi, and squares. So it says, Penelope says that rectangles, rhombi, and squares are always parallelograms. Is Penelope correct? Explain your reasoning. That's extra practice. And then there's the other video lesson with equal angles, right angles, and equal sides. So in that one, we're highlighting the rectangle, the rhombus, and the square with some extra practice. Here it says, Bryce thinks that this is the extra practice. So it says, Bryce thinks that a rhombus and a parallelogram are exactly the same because they have 4 sides and 2 pairs of parallel sides. How can you explain their difference to Bryce? Is a rhombus always, sometimes, or never a square? Explain your thinking. So it's taking it up. So we have it follows the pattern of video lesson, extra practice, video lesson, extra practice. However many video lessons, you have extra practice to go with it. And then we have a math mission, which is like a math task. Draw an example of a quadrilateral with 4 equal sides, but no right angles. So you can see here, we do not have any visuals there to help us like we have in some of the other lessons. Here it's a lot of words where students are going to have to take the words and draw them. And then here for Math Misconception Mystery, this is another video. So right here, you just go back to the silver page, you click play right there, and I'll guide you in the video through the whole process. First, your students will solve this problem on their own, and then they will press play and watch as 4 characters solve the same problem. 3 of those characters are going to make a mistake that students commonly make, and only 1 of them has the correct answer. By the way, these characters are just me dressed up in silly costumes, and it's a lot of fun. After they watch the video lesson, your students will then fill out their detective report, explaining who the most reasonable answer belongs to, and then evaluating the work of the other 3 characters, okay? So that is our silver plan. You got your answer keys right there for everything that we just went over. And if you are a gold member, you also have the gold plan that gives you access to even more. So with the gold plan, you have a mini assessment for every standard. So for this standard, you can see it's right up here. We have a variety of question types, all focusing on quadrilaterals and their attributes. Okay. Usually these mini assessments are about 4 to 5 questions long. Got your answer key right here. This is where after I finish recording and editing this video, your breaking down the best episode will go right there in that spot. So that's probably where you're watching it now if you're a gold member, and it doesn't have any ads or anything. But on YouTube, you can also find these breaking down the best videos. They contain ads. It's just a nice little perk of being a gold member that it's right here with all of your resources. So you click play, you learn about the standard, and then you see everything that you have access to. Really though, the highlight of the gold plan is access to 155 video lessons for each grade level with McCarthy Math 155. Now this is aligned to the Common Core standards. However, if you've had some experience with the B.E.S.T standards and that transition from the Common Core standards, you know that there's a lot of skills that do trickle over. So for this one, if we click here, we're going to go to the 155 website. This is the third. I'm clicking 3rd grade because I think that there might be some in here. I'm scrolling down to the shapes and attributes unit, and we do talk about quadrilaterals right there. And a lot of this is in song form, so talking about polygons, parallel and perpendicular lines, using lyrics of a song and modeling it and drawing it here. Like this one goes, take 2 lines and make them cross. Now they're intersecting, crisscross. If they intersect, making angles that are right. Perpendicular lines. But if they never ever cross like a railroad track? Well, that'd be swell if there was, well, a special name for that. Well, consider this your lucky day, boss. We call them parallel lines because they never ever cross. So going through and really talking about it, gives it, by creating a song, it gives students a mental anchor chart almost to connect back to, which is great. Then we're breaking down quadrilaterals, parallelograms, or trapezoids. Just be careful with this because the trapezoid here only is with the exclusive definition of a trapezoid, where it has only 1 pair of parallel sides. Where now with the B.E.S.T standards, we have the inclusive definition where it needs to have at least 1 pair. So just be careful with that. We've got parallelograms with 4 right angles, quadrilaterals, parallelograms with 4 equal sides, and the square. So you can see we're doing a lot there to break it down. So you have access to even more episodes with McCarthy Math 155 to really help it. Just be really careful with the trapezoid and making that connection between the definition that they need to know, which is the inclusive definition, at least 1 pair of parallel sides. Okay? All right, I think that is it for going over the standard. I hope that now you understand MA.3.GR.1.2 and that you understand what the expectation is going to be. You've seen what it looks like in action, and now you know what resources you have that are strategically and specifically aligned to this standard. So I hope that this was helpful for you. Before we go, please let me remind you that what you wake up and you do every day with your life, it really does matter. Thank you so much for stepping into the leader that you were born to be, showcasing what your best looks like so your students can be inspired to do the same. Thank you, of course, for inviting me into your educational space. I just love supporting you. I really do. I love putting out quality content to help make your life easier and put some time back into your pocket. And I know that you're busy, so go ahead, get on back to what you got to get back to, and I will see you in another episode real soon, okay? Bye.
Okay, so I know that I just said goodbye for now, but I'm gonna ask you to do one more thing, okay? If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with your teacher friends or other leaders in education. That's how I get to continue doing what I love to do, which of course is supporting you all to the best of my ability. All right, for real now. Bye.